Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Colonized Minds, the podcast. This is Elizabeth Guzman Arroyo.
And this is Luke Gibbons.
And today we have a very special guest with us. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley McKinney Whitecalf.
And Ashley, if you could tell the good folks out there, what is your title?
Currently, I am Cascade Campus Director of Legislative Affairs, as well as the Black Women's Empowerment League co-coordinator.
All right, looks like you got a lot on your plate this year.
I do.
So, thanks for actually coming on the podcast. When we decided that we were going to do a podcast and we were having those conversations, one of the things that we decided very early on was that we wanted whoever was going to be the Director of Legislative Affairs for ASPCC to come on and to talk about some of the work that they're doing. So I was really, really happy when I found out that it was going to be you.
Oh, thank you.
I was like, yes, Ashley got it. So this is going to be a pretty good conversation. So yeah, thanks for coming on. So if you could, just for some people who may not be as familiar with ASPCC or your particular position, if you could explain a little bit about the Director of Legislative Affairs.
Yeah, of course. So as the Director of Legislative Affairs for this campus, I represent the student body voice on the policy level. So things that I coordinate is the lobby day where students get to go to the Capitol and meet different representatives, talking about some concerns they might have with higher education, such as affordability, textbook prices, tuition increases. So that's what I do, as well as we do voter vote, which is our attempt to register as many students on this campus as possible. So far, we have 721 registered students.
Oh, wow.
Our goal is over 1,000, so we're still pushing for the next couple weeks.
So will you tell us a little bit more about voter vote? Like how do students get registered? And are you also trying to get staff and faculty and other community members to register?
Yeah, definitely. I think we push for the student voice, but we try to register as many people as possible. Sometimes we have community members who are coming through that we want to register to vote, and definitely trying to get our staff members involved. One thing that I say when I register students to vote, why it's important to me, is some of the barriers that I have faced and that others before me have faced. When I go to do a class wrap, which is where advisors or teachers will allow us to go in and talk to students about registering to vote before their class, I often bring up how Native American folks couldn't vote until 1945 legally, or how women couldn't legally vote until 1920, and African American males couldn't vote until 1865. Also, there is this huge national poll with the election coming up, which makes this vote year very interesting. But we really want students to see the local power they have. The board members that represent them are people who they can vote for, and the governor, and different ballot measures such as Measure 4076, which is the Oregon Promise, which allowed students to come into the college free of charge, and things like DACA, which was Measure 88. Those things are really important that we're preserving, and students know that they have the autonomy to keep those things going on a local level much more powerful than maybe the national level.
Right.
But that's what we really are pushing for students to get involved with, especially international students who might not legally be able to vote, but their voice still matters here on campus, being that they pay 3 times more than the average student. So we want them to know that their voice is important, and there's other ways that they can get involved in the vote process, such as volunteering or providing spaces for them to get educated on the process. So yeah, it's definitely about student voice and student empowerment.
Right. And I think you make a good point, because oftentimes, like, I've heard some responses as to why folks aren't eager to go out, register, and vote, right? And oftentimes folks talk about like a national setting, right? So voting like for the president election, but don't think about that, like you mentioned, those local acts and bills that are being, or measures that are being passed or attempting to be passed, and the power that a vote can actually have. So what would you say to those folks who don't see a point in voting, that say that our political system is like broken?
So the vote campaign is something that is interesting, because I get a lot of students who are asking me my personal political views, but we're actually nonpartisan. So
Don't we know? Because so are we.
Yeah, and basically how I challenge, I say, it's not about what my views are. It's about, having your voice heard. And if they say, well, like, they don't see there's a point, then I'll definitely, I'll say, yeah, it votes process here. I think maybe when you say that your voice might not matter in the national election, you might be talking about the delegates and how they get the decision making and who's going into the presidential campaign. But we vote for those delegates.
Right.
And we vote for those representatives. So if you're thinking about it solely on that level, then you're not seeing the power that you have.
So one of the things I found, especially in talking to younger voters, it seems to be, I don't want to say apathy, but I want to say a disconnect between national politics and local politics. And so I think for a lot of people, based on what you said, they may get on board with voting for local elections. Right? These are people that they can see, people that they feel make a difference. But what would you say to the young voter who is kind of fed up with the national scene, maybe even Senate elections, right? What would you say to that person who feels like regardless of who it is that they vote for, they don't feel like they have a voice?
For me, I think being in this position and not knowing much about the process and kind of being overwhelmed by a lot of the different perspectives and questions I get on a daily basis, I would just encourage the student to educate themselves. If they don't want to be involved in the process and they don't want to find out more information about what other students might be facing, I would just say at least know about it, because you never know who you're sitting next to in the classroom, what they're facing, and how your voice might empower them, especially if you're sitting next to a student who's undocumented and your vote can decide whether or not they can go to school the next year or not. Get involved in your campus, know about what some of the things you're struggling with. I hear students all the time saying they sometimes have to choose between, going to take an exam or going to work an extra hour so they can have something to eat, or being able to go to spring term or having to drop out so they can pay their tuition.
Food or textbooks.
Exactly, food or textbook. And there's plenty of students who are feeling defeated. We're going through a housing crisis, and there's a lot of things on all of our plates. But being informed is the most empowering thing to me, because it gives you a choice. Registering students, I'm not saying vote, vote, vote. I'm just saying register so you can choose to vote.
Have an option.
You have the option to. And as you learn more, you can decide whether it's okay for you or not.
So one of the things that I picked up from your description about your position is it almost seems like twofold. So one would be to get students registered and engaged in the process of voting for local national elections. But then there also seems to be a lot of activist work, and that's really trying to advocate, push for different policies. So I think you mentioned DACA being one of those policies previously, but internally looking at tuition increases. Like that would be an example of one of the policies. So it really sounds like, from the way I'm interpreting what you're saying, is you have kind of like a twofold job. One is getting folks registered and active in the voting process, but then also internally the operations of PCC. Would I be correct in kind of looking at it, Melanie?
No, you're absolutely correct. It's definitely twofold. And in a way trifold, because I always try to include myself in what I'm passionate about and who I represent, the different, perspectives and intersections that are me. So I'm always trying to push for getting students of color involved more and more marginalized folks. It's very important that as the Director of Legislative Affairs that I am aware of what's going on and what's affecting our students, because I am representing their voice on a policy level. So definitely different hats that I have to take off and put on, but it's really valuable, important work.
So what would you say is one of the things this year, at least internally, kind of the operations of PCC? What are some of the things that are important for students to be aware of this year?
Things that are really big this year that are being pushed is the registration process, being that it's a big election year. We're always encouraging students to take part in our lobby day. As Director of Legislative Affairs, I also do a a legislative internship cohort, which is an opportunity for students to be able to work at the Capitol with a representative or senator of their choice.
Oh, nice.
I was a part of it last spring, and it was a really great opportunity to, get experience in the legislative process.
Is that paid?
It is, you get 4 credits.
Okay.
And it's free of charge, and you also get a travel stipend. You can get a wealth of experience and connections.
Gotcha.
It's really cool to go up there and be on the House floor, the Senate floor, and see how the Capitol works.
So what's, you mentioned really kind of being a mouthpiece for students and being someone who lobbies for students and who advocates on behalf of students. How are you able to get the voice of the students? So what are some of the tips and strategies and ways that you go about getting the information from students so that you can serve as that liaison between students and our elected representatives and board members? How do you do that?
I'd say we're really big on involvement with our different retention clubs here and the different representatives. We really want to hear, and the community centers as well, what students that are coming to them for support and what their needs might be. Also, we do a lot of surveying. Surveying is a great way for students to talk about what they want to see happen in a short way that we can look at numbers, and numbers are a great tool to kind of, and percentages are a great way to get students' voices to be seen, and like for representatives to take into account that we do care a lot. Just because we're in community college doesn't mean we don't care. It's just a lot of times people have a lot of other things going on,
right,
and they don't have the time, or sometimes they don't have the accessibility to go to the Capitol and lobby for themselves, or take part in every single event that we have going on here. So I see a collective in the centers and in the different clubs where students are using different surveys and different encounters to represent the students in that way.
And so you mentioned events, and I know that there's an event in November coming up that y'all are beginning to plan already. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
We have a programming team also, and we're actually collaborating on doing the election night viewing. It's going to be November 8th at 6 p.m. here in the Student Union. It's going to be pretty exciting. I think it's going to be fun to see the different perspectives of students come together. I think it'll be a great event. I'm really excited to support and be a part of that. We're also going to be having some education events during that time for students after the registration process, which ends on October 18th, to be able to learn about, where they would want their vote to lie. So more information about the different measures that are coming out and the different representatives they might want to vote for. So November's going to be a really busy month.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting. One is the Floats and Votes, and it's Monday, October 17th from noon to 2 p.m., and it's in the Student Union, and students can get free root beer floats. We're going to be registering students as well, so we're inviting everyone to come out and be a part of that. I was going to say, if people had questions and they wanted to get involved in the volunteer process, they want to get involved in volunteering, that they could contact myself or Andrew Rogers. He is the vote organizer for this campus. And it's just a really great opportunity for people who might want to get some practice with public speaking. They want to practice their communication skills, or they want some volunteer hours to get involved in the process. It's only for a couple weeks. So this week and next week, the 17th will be the last day.
So what would you say has been the biggest surprise this year coming into this position?
I think the biggest surprise would be just learning more about myself and my being able to go in front of a whole classroom of students and trying to encourage them to vote. I honestly didn't think that that'd be something that I'd be able to do last year. I was just a volunteer. around the campus, and now I'm in this position, and it's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of work. So I just think I'm very surprised at the things I'm learning about myself and the things that I'm able to do just by the empowerment that it is for the students, and that I'm representing them, and it's very important, and I want them to have the best possible outcome. So I definitely think I surprised myself.
What do you think is the biggest issue facing students right now?
I think the biggest issue facing students is the tuition increases. We are continuously having an increase to pay for the different things that it takes to keep these campuses running, but we're also steadily losing student enrollment.
Yeah.
So I believe just for this term, it was a 1.5% drop. And being that students aren't able to enroll as much, but tuition's increasing, it's making accessibility and affordability for students more and more difficult all the time. So that's one thing that we're trying to always work towards, getting higher education investments on the state level will be really helpful, because students already pay 47% of their education by themselves. So we want to make sure that students are able to come to school and they're able to stay and graduate from school and be successful in their future.
So there was something really interesting that you said, that students are funding 47% of their education. And I think even it's an important thing to throw out there for people to be aware of, because I don't think a lot of people, when you say that, like, I don't think a lot of people understand how colleges are funded. Right? I think people somehow think that colleges just get a lot of money from the state or get a lot of money from the feds, and that's how they operate. And really the truth of the matter is, yes, there's some money that's coming from the state, local governments, there's money that's coming from taxes, but I think what you're referring to is the actual operation of the college. 47% of that is coming from students paying their tuition. Mm-hmm. And so it's really students who are funding the lion's share of how our college operates.
Yeah, and supporting different places on campus that really represent them, like the Multicultural Center and the Women's Resource Center and the Veterans Center, the Queer Resource Center. Students are the ones who are investing in that. We want to make sure that we're able to continue these programs.
So one of the things that was done last year that I'm hoping can be repeated this year were the finance forums that were done. I remember seeing one in the student union where Jim Langstrom, I think the AVP of finance, came and he went through the PCC's budget. He also talked about how we're funded. I thought that was a really great educational tool for students to be able to see, like, how we get funded, right, and where money goes. So are there any plans to do that again this year?
I'm not aware of that, but I think that would be amazing.
Okay.
Just you talking about it. I was not able to go last year, but it sounds awesome, and I will definitely see what we can do about that.
Right, and I think it'd be interesting actually to have Jim come on our podcast, maybe during the live elections, the live podcast, have him come on and actually explain to our students in our audience how we are funded, like what is the breakdown, right? Because I think, like we've mentioned, our students, our staff, faculty, community members oftentimes can't be in a room specifically, but if we're able to broadcast it, that audience will be greater.
Oh, and let me just say, I'm not putting Jim on blast. I like Jim. I'm saying that because I actually went to that presentation and I thought it was a really good presentation.
It was.
It was really good information that I don't think a lot of people know. And so I think even going to the idea of like transparency, and just us as educators, these are things that we need to know. There's faculty and staff members who don't understand how we're funded. So I just think it would be really cool to have Jim on the podcast and to do some of those forums again this year so that more people know. And this, part of the reason I say that, and I think that's important, is because I think it's important for students to know how we're funded. Because I think what happens is that students see that tuition is going up. And then there's this perception of, well, the institution is just increasing tuition because it feels like increasing tuition. But the backstory to that is we used to get a lot more funding from the state. We no longer get that funding. And so as a way of making up for that, we've had to increase tuition. So when that story, I think, gets told and people are able to have that context, I think that provides students with the information that they need to be able to lobby and advocate on their behalf.
Right.
So that energy is focused in the right direction.
I completely agree. You just inspired me.
All right. That's what we do in the MC. We inspire folks.
Yes.
And so for folks, I mean, I mentioned the live podcast for folks that are wondering, like, what in the world is this live podcast that Elizabeth mentioned? In line with the election night broadcast that ASPCC will be hosting on November 8th at 6 p.m. in the Student Union second floor lounge.
You got it.
The MC will also be doing a live podcast at the same time, same location, talking about the election. So it's a collaborative effort for everyone to attend.
Exciting.
Yeah, and the idea is just we'll be having these conversations about politics, about the measures that people are going to be voting for. We're also open to be able to talk to a few students, to kind of get their thoughts and their feelings on the election overall. So yeah, I think it's going to be good all around.
I agree. I'm excited.
So before we get out of here, just going to make a few announcements for folks. For those of you who have been listening to the podcast pretty frequently, you'll know where I'm going with this. Paying the Price. Dr. Sarah Goldrick-Robb is going to be talking about her new book. It's going to be October the 18th. That is next Tuesday. She's going to be doing a lecture and a book signing. It's going to be 6:30 in the Moriarty Arts Building. And she's going to be talking about this great book that looks at college costs, financial aid, and its connection to the American dream. So it really ties into kind of what we've just been talking about here. So to that education piece that Ashley was talking about, if you really want to get a good in-depth insight into how higher education is funded, where your tuition dollars are going, I would definitely encourage you to come hear Dr. Goldrick-Robb talk about her new book. Also, we got the Asian Women's Focus Group that is being hosted by the Women's Resource Center. Pre-registration for that is required. You can pre-register by going to the Women's Resource Center, which is Student Union Room 301. You can call them at extension 5249, or you can email Nancy Ong. That is nancy.ong@pcc.edu to register. The focus group itself is going to be held this Friday, October 14th, from 10 to 1 p.m., Student Union Room 304. Again, pre-registration is required.
And one last announcement that I have is for next week on October 19th, we're having our first of the year PDAR, which is Purposeful Dialogues About Race, and the TLC, which is the Teacher Learning Center in Cascade Hall on that first floor there. So if you're interested, it's from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And of course, you can stop by anytime, leave at any time. I know that classes sometimes run during that time or other obligations. Right, that is common hour, but I know that there's some classes that are still going on. So Purposeful Dialogues About Race, it's really, really good events, really great conversations. We have them every month, so feel free to attend.
I just want to let students know that Friday, October 14th from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Student Union Building, room 203 on the second floor, is the Black Women's Empowerment Week Club Welcome Gathering. So if you guys want to come out and have some food and some good conversation, I would encourage it.
Great, and I think Dr. Edwards is going to be the special host this Friday.
Yes, Dr. Edwards is going to be a guest speaker, and we're really excited.
Ashley, it was great having you on, folks. It's been great talking to you as always. This is Luke Gibbons.
And this is Elizabeth Guzman Arroyo.
Saying, what if it's true?